So we are maybe once in a lifetime, we are sat down with Harley Karulis. Harley, welcome. How are you?
Good. How about you? I'm really doing well. It's
Because
a beautiful day.
Absolutely beautiful day. But with you, usually we are walking, aren't we?
Well, we're actually sitting right now.
Yeah.
We're not walking.
Yeah, yeah. But how did you start to propose your historic walks through Toronto? Because you walk more than Johnny Walker, I would say.
I'm up to 400 walks now.
400.
400. I've designed 400 walks.
Yeah.
How I started was pretty with an idea to bring people together.
Yeah.
Community. I was hearing people talk about Parkdale.
Yeah.
That it wasn't really a good neighborhood, that people don't want to come into Parkdale, they want to kind of stay away from Parkdale, and I thought I want to bring people in, and I want to kind of bridge communities.
And I came to Parkdale.
And you came to Parkdale,
yeah.
so you must have listened somehow.
Yeah.
No, but that was my original idea, was to bring people together, to build communities through walking tours. So take people where they usually don't go, and look at different neighborhoods. So that all started in 2019.
2019.
19.
And,
Before the pandemic.
Before the pandemic, how did you live the pandemic? How did you survive it?
Walking tours. I was able to do some walking tours during the pandemic. Now, of course, we were locked down, so we had to, wear the masks and only could have 4 or 5 people. But it really helped me get out, learn about the city, and help people who couldn't really get out themselves to explore the city during a very difficult time. During a very difficult time.
Absolutely, because you were born here?
I was born in Toronto.
And what happened? You went out, you came back. Can you tell us about your life? Get to know you better?
You know what? I grew up in Toronto. I actually grew up in Parkdale.
Yeah.
On Jameson Avenue.
Oh.
And then we moved as a family to Wilson Park Road, and I loved living in Parkdale. The beach was right, next door.
Yeah, and, I love it too.
I love Parkdale. I think it's a great community. I went to school here. Love the history of the CNE, especially the area that we're in now. The CNE. Yeah. It was my first book that my parents bought me back in 1978, and I think I devoured it in a week. I read the entire book, and I was like 10. And then I kind of forgot about history. High school. I became a personal trainer. I took creative writing, and I kind of forgot about history. I forgot about the love that I have for Toronto and its history and its people. And I kind of rediscovered that at a time when we were kind of going into the pandemic. So it was kind of an interesting time. It was an interesting time for me. I didn't have the best last couple of years. My mom was very ill, and kind of taking care of her, and then we're here with 400 tours, and I love what I do.
Absolutely, it's I can say that when you take a tour of yours, you show how you love Toronto, how you love what you're even. I remember the path.
The path tour.
It's impossible to it's impossible to get with the maps, and you make it easy. But with 400 tours, you must have lots of stories because of the path. I know every map is different.
Every map is different. That is what you have to remember. The path.
What's your favorite story about Toronto, or one?
My favorite story is actually I love the dark secrets of Toronto.
Oh.
So I like anything, because I also write horror, so I'm a horror writer. So I think that the horror stories, I tend to gravitate toward the darker moments in Toronto history. My favorite story, which is kind of weird to say this, is the story of the Noronic. The Noronic was a ship, 1949. Yeah. It came into Toronto Harbor on its last cruise, and there was a huge fire on board. It was one of Toronto's greatest disasters. It killed 119 people, and the people who were had to be examined after they died. They were brought to the CNE, to the morgue here.
Yeah.
So I do a ghost tour of the CNE, and that's one of my stops. So I love the history of the neuronic, especially with regard to ghost stories.
Yeah, it's a story with a background.
With a background, and I love stories
Yeah.
like that. But Toronto has so many
Yeah.
different stories, which I didn't even really realize. I mean, it was sort of a surprise to me as I would learn them about the Underground Railroad, about the Chinese influence in Toronto, and how people treated the different minorities in Toronto. That was a surprise as I learned about it, especially the Irish, Chinese, people like that.
I remember some of your walks about it because that's well, really interesting and surprising.
Yeah.
Knowing about all the history, because we are now also in a place where almost Toronto began, isn't it?
This is pretty much
Very
where
close,
Toronto
yeah.
began. Right, just off to the to my right is the Fort Roulet Monument, and was one of the last French forts built in Toronto. So really, Toronto started in this area, just off the Humber River as well.
There was no Gardiner Expressway. in
There
those
was no
times.
Gardiner Expressway. No. Actually, we would be in water right now.
Oh, yes, because that's one thing I remember one friend of mine told me, because it was front and Lakeview. This was a lake, and then they
Yeah, we would
went
be in
along.
water right now.
Yeah.
We would be in, and there was no Lakeshore Boulevard, no Gardiner, no King Street. It was just
Yeah,
this
like
area,
this.
right
Yeah.
there.
Well, there's a group, Hidden Past Toronto History Walks, in Facebook. I'm a proud member of that
Thank you.
book. And I also meet you through Meetup. How can we know about all the walks? Because with 400 walks, I think usually we have to get you walking, get you while you're walking.
The 400 walks, it started as just 5.
Yeah.
It started 5 walks. Parkdale, the CNE, Muddy York, Dark Secrets of Toronto, and Riverdale. Those were my first 5 walks.
Oh, yeah?
And then I just kind of added, once every couple of weeks I would add a few walks, especially at the beginning. And then I was adding walks, I was doing the research and adding walks pretty much weekly,
Yeah.
daily at some point, until I managed to get 400 individual walking tours. I don't know, sometimes I think people think, how can one person keep all this in their brain?
Yeah, and, well,
Yeah, maybe I do.
maybe your brain. Maybe we have to examine your brain, but we'll leave
A
it
little bit later.
We'll leave it for later.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it depends on the season. Does it? Because
some of my walks
yeah.
have ended for the season.
Yeah.
But then I go into the winter walks as well.
Yeah.
And I think most people think that the Toronto Island or the ravines, it's for summer, right?
Yeah.
They're amazing winter, fall, spring,
Yeah.
the whole year. So I keep doing walks in winter as well.
Yeah. I love the islands. And,
Islands
that's
in
very,
winter,
very interesting.
wonderful, absolutely fun. It's a totally different feeling. Like you go over to the island in summertime, green, beautiful flowers. You go over in wintertime, after a snowfall, it's
Yeah.
just a carpet of white.
Oh.
It's really, really quite nice.
Do you have any special walk for now fall time, for even for Christmas, or
I have-
or for Halloween?
I'm glad. Oh, from Halloween, a horror writer here, right?
Oh yes, so you should.
I have
yes.
the bloody Halloween tours coming up on October 13th.
Oh.
And I'm going into the full Halloween season. So I do the CNE tour,
Yeah.
Ghosts of the CNE, in this area.
Yeah.
So a lot of tours for Halloween are coming up. And then in December, end of November, I have the Christmas lights tours. So Yorkville, the beaches, people spend so many hours putting up so many great lights. And I think people should take a look at them. So we do that as well.
Absolutely. I see that also you have a Ernest Hemingway trail. You know, Hemingway was very fond with Spain. With
Yes, he wasn't very fond of Toronto.
yeah.
No, he did not like Toronto. He liked Spain, and
Yeah.
he liked Cuba, and he liked the Florida Keys.
Yes.
He did not like Toronto.
He did not like Toronto.
No, he I think
doesn't
part of that because he was here during a prohibition when he
yeah.
couldn't really drink.
Oh, that's
that was not
terrible
a good
for
thing. So he liked to walk in Cedar Vale Ravine. which is up near Bathurst and St. Clair, and then he lived on Bathurst up at the Hemingway. So he loved kind of walking in that area.
Yeah, there is a tavern in Spain, because there are so many places where they say
Where
Hemingway ate here, Hemingway ate here,
Yep.
where they say Hemingway didn't eat here, to specify that didn't happen.
Well, he went from here back to Paris, back to France, and then he covered the Spanish Civil War,
yeah, I remember.
and then he lived in Cuba and the Florida Keys.
Yes.
But he loved Europe. He didn't particularly like Toronto at all. But he was working here for the Toronto Star.
Yeah.
He worked here for the Toronto Star.
Yeah, and an interesting story.
But it's interesting though. But in 1930s Toronto
Yeah.
was very different from the Toronto we have today.
You
So
have
maybe
also
that
a
would
walk, Toronto Art Deco, 1929, 1939. I have
Art Deco.
Art Deco. Yeah.
Art Deco.
Oh.
That's one of my favorite.
Oh yes, I
tours.
pronounce it like French people. And
Yeah, I'm
Spanish-
thinking, okay,
Art
hold
Deco,
on, what are you saying?
and you say Art
Yeah,
Deco. It's like
Art
we say
Deco.
Trudeau, and you say Trudeau.
No, Trudeau. Art
Yeah.
Deco. Art Deco. Yeah, I do an Art Deco tour. It's fantastic. I really, really enjoy it. It's one of my favorite tours. A lot of our buildings are still standing. The Art Deco building,
Oh.
especially downtown, but they're getting, they're getting less and less as time goes by. One of my favorite buildings is the old postal station.
Yeah.
Postal station up, which is now Scotiabank Arena. It's
Yeah.
the outside is exquisite
Absolutely.
in Art Deco splendor.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah, Art Deco. It's in Spain we would say Art Deco.
Art Deco.
I like the French. Wow. And what happens with your writing? Are you going to release any book about all these walks, all the history?
Oh, I'm
of Toronto?
working on books now on the history
Yeah.
of Toronto.
Yeah.
I'm also during Halloween season. I like to go back to writing horror, which I'm doing now. I'm writing a few. I'm taking some of my old stories and kind of refreshing them, and hoping to get them into some type of book in the near future. Not right now, because I want to focus on Toronto history, but it's coming. The horror. I tend to deal with rats and mice and scary stuff.
There are lots of rats. I've
yeah,
seen them. There
oh,
are
there
lots of rats now.
Oh, there are a lot
So,
of rats. Yeah,
uh,
there are a lot of rats. Yes, I must agree.
yeah, absolutely. There, if you like this kind of bags, this kind of animals.
Well, you know what people say to me that
Yeah.
how come you love history
Yeah.
and you love horror?
Yeah.
Well, history and horror are kind of joined in many ways. It's almost the same thing in many ways.
Yes, I like we're seeing now, like the different walks you have. Toronto crimes.
Toronto crimes.
Parkdale,
Parkdale.
Yorkville, and the annex.
The annex. Some of the real heavy duty crimes occurred in Yorkville and the annex, and one of them was the murder of Bert Massey. Bert Massey from Massey Hall. Massey Hall from the Massey Hall family.
Yeah.
He was murdered by his maid in 1915. So that's on my walk as well.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite a story for good old Toronto. Because they say, oh yeah, Toronto's always so good.
Yeah, yeah, but
not
different
quite.
crimes.
Yeah.
And I remember I read a book about an unsolved crime of the beginning of the 20th century. I didn't know about Massey. There are also unsolved crimes now, so let's go. There are not they are not in the coming.
Well, one of them is
Yes.
the story of Ambrose Small, and I
Yeah.
have a walk coming up at the end of the month. Ambrose Small disappeared in 1919 in Toronto, and he's never been found. They think that he may have disappeared into the furnace of the Grand Opera House on Adelaide, or he was kidnapped and never returned to his home. You never know. But that's a cold case.
Yeah. There are lots of interesting cold cases. I hope you even solve it.
Well, that's even for my brain that could be tough.
But anyway, if we want to, because I'm showing all the disappearance of Ambrose Small.
There you go.
Sunday, October 29th. There
There you
were a
go.
lot of walks before that
There
one,
you go.
but
Oh, right there.
they're
Perfect timing. Perfect timing. Going to a crime.
They're looking for it. How How should we do? If we want to go for one of these walks, if we want to go with you and learn about it.
So you would join Meetup.
Yeah.
You would join Toronto History Walks, and you would just put your name down for a walk and join.
Okay.
And join.
Okay, so
we have so many walks.
Yes, I was looking which one, but maybe now it's Moore Park Brickworks and Works of Stephen King, Halloween event.
That's a Halloween. I'm talking about the works of Stephen King. Horror writer, history.
Okay.
There you go.
So I'm attending. Are you bringing anyone? I'm bringing you. So
you'll enjoy that.
Okay, I won't put all my data here. This is private.
Okay.
But we're ready. Anything else you have for the future? Because I know you're also a filmmaker. You're a really creative person, and maybe while you're walking, you're thinking on some other stuff.
I'm thinking up a lot of different stuff. I would like to. I have a couple of projects that I definitely want to look at in the future, and that is to bring the story of the Empress of Ireland to life. The Empress of Ireland, Canadian story.
Yeah.
It was a Canadian Pacific liner that went down in the St. Lawrence River, just opposite Rimouski, Quebec.
Yeah.
With the loss of thousands of Canadians.
It was that big explosion?
No, it was an accident in fog.
Yeah.
It was hit by another inbound ship.
Oh my!
And the boat tipped over and went down in 14 minutes. And a lot of people, when we talk about marine disaster, what do we think about? The Titanic, right?
Yeah.
We don't think about the Empress of Ireland. So I would like to eventually do something with that story, write the screenplay, do something, maybe bring it to theaters. But that could be in the future. That will be in the future. Definitely will be in the future.
Yeah. That sounds also very interesting. Everything you do. Meetup is offering me, I don't know what exactly now. Thank you. I'm going to look for the other 400.
You have all 400.
Other 400. And thank you for being with us, Harley.
Thank you.
And
a pleasure.
I'll see you.
I'll see you on a walk.
And on a walk.
All
absolutely.
right.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.